Christian kid tried to convert me, so I exploded a possum all over his truck. But what he did next, I never would have expected.
I get the missionaries can be like annoying and whatnot, but I don't know if exploding a possum is quite the right response. You know what I mean?
When I was a sophomore in high school, a new guy moved into town. His name, Matt. Matt played guitar. Ooh, Matt.
Sheesh.
And I was a singer, match made in heaven. Our love was meant to be. We started dating when I was a junior and he was a senior. I was 16. He was 17. Honestly, it was super cute and it probably would have made a decent Wattpad story, but it wasn't made to last as I was moving to a new state at the start of my senior year. So this story takes place about 2 weeks before the end of my junior year, and the school and the town were getting ready for senior graduation.
Oh yeah, graduate me, baby.
The characters, these are not their real names, but they're fake names. OP, me, the girlfriend. Matt, the boyfriend. Griffin, the bad friend. Henry, the good friend. And SDP, super dead possum. Matt was my first everything. Losing the V card wasn't great, but as it ever is, throwing Matt under the bus. Matt and I were awkward, but we managed to talk boundaries before anything happened. In the conversation, we agreed that it was really important to both of us that this stayed private. Absolutely no bragging or being weird around friends.
Smart.
Griffin was a senior and someone who was in our group of friends, but not a close friend.
Yeah, a Pluto friend.
A Pluto friend. Yeah, you're not a real
You're not a real friend, but you're kind of like there, I guess.
You're there. We were all in either orchestra, choir, and or band.
Yeah.
Everyone in those programs ran in the same social circle. Griffin was a Christian, and it was a big freaking part of his identity when we were in school.
Yeah.
He had this like charisma or something. He used it to invite classmates to his church while gently shaming all of us for not being Christian like him. I was friendly with Griffin because, to put it simply, I lack confidence. OP, sad.
Aww.
I grew up in a church where I was taught that men were more important than me. To never question a man, my own mother even shamed me for wearing my volleyball uniform at home because, John, get this, because it was inappropriate and could confuse my brother.
Mama, you need to reassess your priorities.
Fucked up doesn't begin to cover that church, the amount I had to unlearn. Anyway, by the time I was 17, I was fully done with the church, but still struggled with all I had been taught, as you would. It was a confusing time. Griffin knew this, and it was his self-assigned senior project and a direct line to our Lord God Jesus Christ. It was his mission to get me into his church. I'm 99% sure it was only about getting Matt involved because Griffin also wanted Matt to be a Christian, but had so far been massively unsuccessful. Oof. Matt was not a Christian and had zero desire to know more. He saw firsthand how the church treated me and my family after some shit happened that was out of our control, and Matt was not a fan.
Oh my. I
kept a journal during that time of my life because I had a lot to figure out. My journal was plain, nothing on it to draw attention because I never wanted my family to think it was a journal. It was supposed to be just like an incognito school notebook.
Makes sense.
One day during lunch, I was at my usual table where Griffin sat, and I realized I needed something from the choir room. So I left my stuff at the lunch table, not thinking anything about leaving my backpack there. I had no idea anyone would go through my stuff because that had never happened before. And I didn't have anything of value anyway.
Right.
Well, as it turns out, my journal ends up being valuable because I had written about Matt and I.
Oh.
The dirty, dirty things we did.
No.
And who should have read it but freaking Griffin?
Of course.
Griffin thought he had ammunition to get me back in the church, and I'm assuming Matt was supposed to join us. Griffin proceeded to take my journal and tell basically everyone in our social group and the whole school about my most private moments.
Oh my God.
And it was effing humiliating.
Wow.
Thankfully, Matt didn't blame me, even though I felt like it was my fault. He was more confident than I was, but also didn't get nearly the same shame thrown his way that I was getting.
Yeah.
I knew I was leaving in a few months, so I tried to keep my head down and focus on school, but being called you can imagine the names, by the people I grew up with, after a while, it grates you. I guess Griffin's plan was to shame me back to church, but instead all I wanted to do was leave.
Yeah.
And to ruin Griffin.
Yeah.
It took some time, but I would get my revenge. Cue the revenge. Matt, Henry, and I were hanging outside my house after school. My house was backed up to a street that often had roadkill due to being right alongside a huge swath of woods. At this point, I knew that my revenge was going to include Griffin's brand new Ford F-150 truck. It was a perfect truck. Bottom line is he loved that truck more than he loved life itself. I'm not a car person, so I have no idea what the truck was or if it was good, but I do know it was really, really tall and extremely lifted. Like you couldn't see the top of it, which ended up being bad for Griffin, but fantastic for revenge.
Ooh.
Perfect for hiding stuff. So there was a big super dead possum on the road behind my house that had been there for what seemed like a week.
Oh, God.
Imagine the smell, John. Imagine it.
I am.
Sniff it.
Ugh.
I was staring at the SDP super dead possum because, well, it was there. I'm staring. Matt starts staring. And then Henry starts staring.
Ooh.
We start talking about Griffin because this thing has inspired
Of course.
the Griffin name.
Oh, yeah.
Because man's a piece of rotting flesh. We're talking, and I'm getting madder and madder, then livid. However, I calm down when I realize this possum isn't disgusting. It is opportunity. Oh, gentlemen, we're going to bag that super dead possum and put it in Griffin's truck.
Oh, yeah.
This wouldn't quite be that simple, so we started to brainstorm how we can fully get away with this. Griffin lived in an area of town where it was fast for him to walk to school instead of drive. There was a shortcut through the woods to school, which meant a 3-minute walk. Driving to school meant he had to go 20 miles per hour or slower, and one of the cops was always out because of how the schools were placed, so no speeding.
Ah.
It still took barely any time, but it was longer than the shortcut. Griffin, of course, chose to drive his big-ass truck to school. And that left us with an opportunity. And a plan was forming.
Ooh.
I snuck out that night, met Matt and Henry wearing all black and a mask. Dude, they're heisting right now.
Yeah.
We bagged up the super dead possum, which is the most disgusting thing I've ever done. And we drove to Griffin's. We parked a bit away and went through the woods to the back of Griffin's house, lugging this putrid bag of nonsense. We had decided to put the super dead possum on top of the truck, knowing that Griffin wouldn't be able to see it. He couldn't drive like an asshole and wouldn't be taking his truck anywhere besides school. So basically, the possum's not going to fall off the top because he's only going like 20 miles an hour.
Ah, I see.
We thought about this. So the super dead possum was super effing bloated. And if any of you are familiar with bloated roadkill, you may know where this is going.
Oh,
John, you
no.
familiar?
It's about to be a pop balloon.
Let's see. Super dead possum was heavy and not going anywhere until this revenge was done. The next day at school, Griffin parks in the student lot like normal. We go to class like normal. I get called a few names throughout the day, like normal. Sad. I went through the day gleefully awaiting the final bell, knowing that Griffin was in for a nasty surprise.
Yes.
Now, this is happening 2 weeks before graduation in a very southern state. It is hot as fuck where I grow up and 90% humidity on top of it. Sounds like Florida.
Hell yeah.
So the bloated super dead possum on Griffin's car, well, that super dead possum did what an old bloated super dead possum is going to do.
Oh. No.
It exploded. And if you've ever experienced the smell, and I hope you never do, it is awful.
Wow.
The final bell rang. Matt, Henry, and I strategically placed ourselves a bit behind Griffin so we could see him once he got to his truck. When you made it to the parking lot, you made it to the smell.
Oh.
It was horrible.
My God.
People were gagging, frantically looking around to try to find the source while covering their noses and sprinting to their cars. I knew this plan was going to satisfy my revenge, but never imagined this level of chaos. Griffin gets to his car, and because the super dead possum exploded, he definitely notices it now.
Oh, God.
The force of the explosion of this poor animal meant that all of his windows were cracked.
What?
The juices
Oh my God.
seeped into the roof, down the windows, and inside the siding of the doors.
Wow.
It got all, and the sunroof was open, so it got all in there.
Oh.
There was
Jesus.
no way he was driving home, so we had to call a tow.
Oh my God.
As he's calling, Griffin starts vomiting because he had stood too close to the truck for too long. And we get to see everything. We get to see Griffin's misery.
Ooh.
Griffin manages to get on the phone, calling his parents, crying that his truck has been destroyed. And he could hear his dad yelling in the speaker. Eventually, the tow arrives, and the tow guy is gagging, but gets the truck loaded up and out of the parking lot.
It's like in the movies where like one person starts vomiting and then everyone,
At this point, Griffin had been yelling, crying, vomiting about his truck long enough that the people left at school knew what had happened. And by the following morning, the whole school knew. When Griffin came into school the next day, his parents and a guy in a suit were with him.
Oh.
A lot of people knew Matt and I had issues with Griffin. Got some beef.
Oh, yeah.
Matt was called into the principal's office, but never me. I'll never know the exact reason for this, but it is most likely a combination of not having a physical evidence against Matt or myself, and that no one imagined a woman, a dainty woman, could be involved in a retaliation scheme so disgusting.
Yeah.
Griffin, his parents, and the guy in the suit tried to throw weight around and get some type of punishment for what happened, but there wasn't really anything the school could do to appease them without knowing who did it or having evidence that it happened at school.
Yeah.
Right? Because they drove to school with the
Makes
possum.
sense. Wow. Genius.
There were cameras at school,
Oh.
and it was clear that Griffin arrived at school with the super dead possum already on his car. Everyone totally knew that Griffin's car was destroyed by Matt and probably me, but never Henry. No reason to suspect Henry. With no proof, though, no one could actually say anything. And good side effect. After that day, people stopped calling me names, and I was mostly ignored until I moved away.
Wow.
If people did have to talk to me, they were polite and to the point. I learned later that people were genuinely terrified of Matt and I because of everything that happened. So the super dead possum was very effective.
Wow. Oh, man. OP. As they say in like politics, like the only way to bury a story, have like a crazier story.
Oh, yeah.
Come out. Wow. Genius.
There is one little addendum. The graduation ceremony arrived, and being a year younger, I was in the crowd cheering for my friends. This was completely unplanned, but I get giddy picturing Griffin's face decades later. As Griffin was walking across the stage, I managed to make eye contact with him, and then I quickly made a little explosion with my hands, winked, and he knew exactly what I meant. And that's some nuclear revenge, folks.
Let's go. Wow. Dude, salute OP.
Salute OP. If you thought this story was crazy, watch this Christian Karen story where she tries to manipulate OP. Click right here or link in description.